I never thought a single glance across a crowded church basement could shatter the life I'd built brick by pious brick. Benjamin, you're the son every father dreams of, pure, devoted, straight as an arrow. Pastor Hale had boomed during my youth group testimony, his hand heavy on my shoulder like a benediction and a brand all at once. But that night, as the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and the scent of stale coffee mingled with whispered prayers, Alexander's eyes met mine, not with judgment, but with a spark that felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. It was supposed to be just another potluck fellowship in the heart of Elmwood, Ohio, a sleepy town where cornfields stretched like God's own quilt under endless blue skies, and the First Baptist Church stood as the moral compass for every soul within a 50-mile radius. I was 25, fresh out of seminary school in Cincinnati, back home to serve as the youth pastor under my father's watchful eye. Pastor Elias Hale, they called him, a towering figure with a voice like rolling thunder and a Bible verse for every sin. He'd raised me alone after Mom passed from cancer when I was 10, molding me into his perfect heir, valedictorian, Eagle Scout, the boy who led Bible studies without a flicker of doubt. Except for the doubt that gnawed at me in the dead of night, the one that whispered questions no sermon could silence. That glance from Alexander, it hit like a thunderclap in a drought. He was new in town, or so the gossip went, a freelance graphic designer who'd moved from Chicago for the simpler life, renting a cabin by Lake Erie. Tall, with that effortless cool of city boys, faded jeans hugging his frame, a flannel shirt rolled to his elbows revealing forearms dusted with ink from tattoos he kept hidden under long sleeves at church. His hair was a mess of chestnut waves, and his laugh, God, that laugh, cut through the room like sunlight piercing storm clouds. He wasn't here for the Lord, not really. He'd come with his cousin, a deacon's wife, nursing a plate of Jell-O salad and looking mildly amused by the whole affair. I turned away first, heat flooding my cheeks as if I'd been caught stealing from the collection plate. Benjamin, introduce yourself, Dad's voice rumbled from the podium, where he was wrapping up his talk on resisting the tempter's lure. I forced a smile, weaving through folding chairs and clusters of parishioners, extending a hand that felt too clammy. Welcome, I'm Ben Hale, youth pastor, Alexander Reed, he said, his grip firm, eyes crinkling at the corners. Alex, and don't worry, I'm not here to cause trouble, just trying to blend in. There was a tease in his tone, a knowing glint that made my stomach twist. Did he see it? The fracture lines in my facade? I mumbled something about the youth group needing volunteers and fled to the kitchen, splashing cold water on my face while my heart hammered like a guilty confession. That night, I lay in my childhood bed, the walls still papered with faded maps of the Holy Land from my Sunday school days. Sleep wouldn't come. Instead, memories flooded in unbidden. The boy in high school locker room whose towel slip had sent me scrambling for cover, the way I'd buried myself in prayer vigils to cure the ache. Dad had caught me once, at 17, staring too long at a catalog model. Son, he'd said, his face crumpling like old parchment, the devil preys on weakness. Fight it with everything you've got. For me. For the flock. I nodded, tears burning, and doubled down. Dates with sweet girls from church. A fiancée named Sarah who'd broken it off last year when I couldn't bring myself to. Well, you know, it wasn't her fault. It was mine. Always mine. By morning, I convinced myself it was nothing. A fluke. But Alex showed up to youth group that Wednesday, all easy charm and bad jokes, sketching caricatures of the kids on napkins while they giggled over pizza. You're good with them, I said later, stacking chairs as the room emptied. He shrugged, wiping his hands on his jeans. Kids see through bullshit. No offense. None taken. I laughed, surprising myself. It felt foreign, like flexing a muscle long atrophied. We talked about Chicago's chaos versus Elmwood's quiet, about how he'd left a high-pressure ad job after a bad breakup. Needed to breathe, he said, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. His gaze lingered, not predatory, but curious. Alive. What about you, Ben? You ever think about getting out? Every day? But I couldn't say it. This is home. Duty calls. He nodded, like he understood more than I let on, and slipped me his number on a torn sketchpad page. If you ever need a break from duty. I crumpled it in my pocket, but didn't throw it away. That was the first crack. Weeks blurred into a rhythm I hadn't known I craved. Alex became a fixture, volunteering for lock-ins, helping with the annual Harvest Festival, his presence a low hum of electricity in the sterile church air. Dad approved at first, a fine young man, that read. Grounded, despite the city polish. But I saw the wariness creep in, the way Dad's sermons sharpened on modern temptations whenever Alex was near. Our first real talk happened at the lake, after a youth bonfire. The kids had roasted marshmallows and sung hymns under a canopy of stars, but as embers died, Alex and I lingered, skipping stones into the black water. You ever feel like you're acting a part? He asked, voice soft against the lapping waves. The question hung, heavy as humidity. All the time, I admitted, the words tumbling out like a dam breach. I told him fragments, about Dad's expectations, the seminary grind, the fiancé who deserved better. Not the core of it, not yet, but enough that his hand brushed mine in the dark, accidental on purpose, and neither of us pulled away. From there, it snowballed. Coffee at the diner on Main Street, where locals shot sidelong glances but said nothing. Hikes in the state park, where trails wound through autumn leaves like veins of fire. He shared stories of Chicago pride parades, of coming out at 20 and losing friends, but gaining a family of chosen souls. It's not a choice, Ben. It's just who you are. His words wrapped around me like a blanket on a winter night, warm and terrifying. One evening, as frost nipped the air and Thanksgiving lights twinkled on porches, we ended up at his cabin. Not for anything sinful, just talking. A bottle of non-alcoholic cider between us on the worn leather couch. The place smelled of pine and fresh paint, walls lined with canvases of abstract cityscapes that screamed freedom. Show me your sketches, I said, and he did, flipping through a notebook filled with raw emotion. Lovers entwined in shadow, faces etched with longing. That's you, I whispered, tracing a figure with haunted eyes. He caught my hand, thumb grazing my knuckle. Time stopped. Our foreheads touched, breaths mingling, and for a heartbeat, I let myself imagine it. Us, real and unashamed. But the phone rang. Dad. Benjamin, service prep. Now. I jerked back, mumbling apologies, fleeing into the night with my heart in tatters. Guilt crashed over me like a tidal wave. That Sunday, I confessed in the empty sanctuary, kneeling at the altar rail until my knees ached. Forgive me, Father, for I have faltered. But the prayers rang hollow. Alex texted, missed you at the diner. Everything okay? I deleted it, then undeleted, staring at the screen until dawn. The fracture widened at Christmas. Dad's big annual pageant. Nativity scenes with live sheep, the whole town crammed into pews strung with garland. Alex played Joseph, his quiet strength commanding the stage, while I narrated from the shadows. After, as snow dusted the parking lot, he pulled me aside behind the nativity stable. Ben, we need to talk. Not here. Panic clawed my throat. Headlights swept the lot, Mrs. Jenkins, the gossip queen, waving goodbye. Then when? This hiding. It's killing you. His eyes, those hazel depths, pleaded. I wanted to tell him everything, to shatter the chains. Instead, I lied. It's nothing. Just family stuff. He stepped back, hurt flickering like a snuffed candle. Okay, but if you change your mind. I didn't. Not then. But the lie festered, poisoning every glance, every brush of shoulders in the fellowship hall. New Year's brought the storm. Dad announced my engagement, to Emily, the deacon's daughter, a match blessed by the Lord. The news spread like wildfire. Church ladies cooed over wedding colors while I smiled through nausea. Emily was kind, oblivious, her hand in mine feeling like a shackle. Alex heard at the youth group pizza night, his face paling as the kids cheered. He excused himself early, and I followed, finding him by his truck in the lot, keys shaking in his grip. Engaged? When were you going to tell me? His voice cracked, raw as winter wind. It's complicated. Weak. Pathetic. Bullshit, Ben. It's fear. And I'm done pretending it's not. He slammed the door, tires spinning gravel as he peeled out. I drove home in a daze, the radio crooning carols that mocked my unraveling soul. Dad waited in the living room, Bible open on his lap. Heard about the drama with Reed. Stay strong, son. The path is narrow. But that night, alone in my room, I wept, not for the lie, but for the truth I'd buried so deep it was choking me. Spring thawed the ground, but not my heart. Emily and I planned a June wedding, her excitement a knife twist with every venue tour. Alex vanished from church, rumors swirling. He'd taken a job back in Chicago, or worse, left town altogether. I told myself it was for the best. Salvation demanded sacrifice. Then came the letter, tucked in Dad's desk while I sorted sermon notes. A yellowed envelope postmarked 20 years ago, addressed to Elias, in elegant script. Curiosity overrode caution. I slid it open, heart pounding. My dearest Elias, I never thought I'd write these words, but the silence between us has grown too heavy. That summer in seminary, it was real. You were real. I know you chose the cloth, the calling, but I can't pretend it didn't happen. Our nights by the lake, your hand in mine under the stars, it haunts me still. If there's any part of you that remembers, meet me in Cincinnati. One last time. Forever yours. Thomas. The paper trembled in my grip. Dad, my unyielding, sermon-thundering father, had loved a man. Hidden it, buried it under decades of denial. The hypocrisy burned, a holy fire consuming the pedestal I'd placed him on. I confronted him that evening, the letter clutched like evidence in a trial. He sat at the kitchen table, coffee steaming untouched, his face ashen as I read the words aloud. Dad. Thomas. Who was he? A long silence, broken only by the tick of the wall clock. Then, a whisper, my greatest sin, and my salvation. He told me everything, voice fracturing like thin ice. Seminary in the 80s, when AIDS was a death sentence and being gay was a one-way ticket to hellfire. Thomas, his roommate, brilliant, kind, with a laugh that lit forbidden rooms. Their affair, brief and blazing, ended when Dad panicked, confessing to a mentor who urged reparative prayer and a lifetime vow of celibacy. Thomas left, heartbroken. Dad rose through the ranks, channeling guilt into zeal. Mom was a cover, a good woman who knew fragments, but never the whole. After her death, he doubled down, raising me as his redemption. Why hide it? I demanded, tears hot. You preached against it, against me while. To protect you. He roared, then deflated. I thought if I could bury it deep enough, it wouldn't touch you. But I see now. I've made you a prisoner of my fear. The confession hung between us, a chasm bridged by shared pain. For the first time, I saw him not as Pastor Hale, but as Elias, a man broken by secrets, clinging to faith like driftwood in a flood. I drove to Chicago that weekend, the highway blurring through rain-streaked glass. Alex's cabin was sublet, but a forwarding address led to a loft in Wicker Park, all exposed brick and city pulse. He opened the door in sweatpants and a faded Blackhawks tee, surprise widening his eyes. Ben? What the? I love you. The words burst free, unscripted, true. I was scared. Of Dad, of the church, of losing everything. But I can't lose you. He pulled me inside, the door slamming like a vow. We talked for hours, about the letter, Dad's secret, my shattered engagement. Emily had understood, tearfully releasing me with a hug and a prayer for happiness. The church whispered, but Dad stood by me in the fallout, his own coming out a quiet ripple that shook the congregation. Not everyone stayed. Friends drifted, board members resigned, but others, unexpected allies, rallied with stories of their own hidden pains. Dad and I rebuilt, side by side, his sermons shifting to grace over judgment. As summer bloomed, Alex and I returned to the lake, that first night replaying in reverse. Under the same stars, his hand found mine, deliberate now. No hiding, no fear. I thought I'd lost you, he murmured, lips brushing my temple. You almost did. I leaned in, our kiss soft as dawn light, a promise, not a sin. Life isn't fairy tales. There are still Sundays when doubt creeps in, when old hymns sting like salt in wounds. Dad battles his ghosts. I navigate a flock divided. But in Alex's arms, by the water's edge, I find home. Not perfection, but peace. And in America's heartland, where corn whispers secrets to the wind, that's miracle enough. The months following my confession to Alex were a whirlwind of fragile hope and jagged edges, like piecing together a quilt from scraps that didn't quite match. We started slow, dinners at Hole-in-the-Wall Taquerias in Chicago, where the air hummed with salsa music and the anonymity of the city let me breathe without the weight of Elmwood stairs. Alex was patient, his humor a lifeline pulling me from the undertow of shame. "One step at a time, Hale," he'd say, squeezing my hand under the table, his calluses rough from sketch pencils a reminder of the artist who'd seen through my mask from day one. Back in Ohio, the church fractured like dry earth under summer sun. Dad called an emergency town hall, standing at the pulpit in his crisp white shirt, sweat beading on his brow despite the AC's hum. "Brothers and sisters," he began, voice steady as he gripped the edges of the lectern, "I've asked you here not as your pastor, but as a man who's faltered, who hid." Gasps rippled through the pews, Mrs. Jenkins clutching her pearls, Brother Harlan shifting uncomfortably in his overalls. Dad laid it bare. The seminary summers, Thomas's ghost, the vows that chained him. I preached fire and brimstone to drown my own thunder. And in doing so, I hurt my son most of all. Eyes turned to me, seated in the front row, my throat tight as a noose. I'd come out in the same breath, about Alex, the love that had bloomed quiet and fierce by the lake. "I'm gay," I said, the words echoing like a dropped offering plate. "And I'm still here, still called to serve, if you'll have me." The room erupted. Some stood in applause, tears streaming. Old Mr. Whitaker, who'd lost a nephew to conversion therapy in the 90s, nodding fiercely. Others stormed out, Harlan muttering about abominations loud enough to curdle the communion wine. By night's end, we'd lost a third of the congregation, tithes plummeting like autumn leaves. Dad and I huddled in his office after, the air thick with stale coffee and unspoken fears. "We did right," he said, clapping my shoulder, his touch lighter now, unburdened. "Even if it costs us the steeple." It nearly did. Bills piled up, the youth van repossessed for late payments. I commuted to Chicago weekends, crashing on Alex's lumpy futon, our nights filled with whispered dreams over takeout lo mein. "What if we start our own thing?" he suggested one rainy evening, sketching a logo on a napkin, a rainbow arc woven into a cross. An affirming church. Inclusive. Real. The idea ignited something dormant, a fire not of judgment, but of welcome. We pored over bylaws and dive bars, Dad contributing verses on radical love from his dog-eared Bible. Emily, bless her, volunteered as treasurer, her organizational skills a godsend. "You deserve joy, Ben," she said over planning coffee, her smile genuine. "We all do." But joy came with thorns. Whispers turned to outright hostility. Hate mail scrawled on church stationery, tires slashed in the lot. One Sunday, as Alex and I arrived hand in hand for the groundbreaking on our new community center, a converted warehouse on Elmwood's edge, a pickup roared up, beer cans rattling in the bed. "Fags," the driver bellowed, a face I recognized from high school football. Tommy Greer, now a bitter mill worker with a chip the size of Lake Erie on his shoulder. He hurled a bottle. It shattered at our feet, glass spraying like shrapnel. Alex shoved me behind him, chest heaving. "Back off, man. We're not hurting anyone." Tommy sneered, engine revving. "You're killing this town. Taking our kids with your devil lies." He peeled out, leaving us shaken, shards glinting under street lamps. I knelt to pick them up, hands trembling, the metallic tang of fear sharp on my tongue. "This is what we get for being honest," I muttered. Alex pulled me up, his embrace fierce. "Or it's what they get for being afraid. We're not backing down." We didn't. The center opened in July, a ribbon cutting under a sky bruised with storm clouds. 50 souls showed, holdouts from First Baptist, queer kids from neighboring towns, families seeking sanctuary. Dad preached the inaugural sermon. Love your neighbor isn't a suggestion, it's the damn commandment. Laughter bubbled, tentative then full, and for a moment, the world felt redeemable. But secrets have a way of festering, and mine wasn't done clawing free. August brought a visitor, Thomas, Dad's ghost made flesh. He'd seen the article in the Cleveland Plain Dealer, local pastor comes out, a tale of faith and forgiveness, and driven down from his quiet life in Vermont, where he taught literature at a community college. Gray streaked his temples, but his eyes held that same quiet fire Dad had described. They met on the lakeside dock at dusk, the water a mirror for the fading sun. I watched from afar with Alex, our fingers laced, as the two men embraced, awkward at first, then deep, decades dissolving in a hug. "Forgive me," Dad whispered, audible over the waves. "Nothing to forgive," Thomas replied, voice carrying like a benediction. We were young, scared. Their reconciliation was a balm, but it unearthed more. Over dinner at the diner, Thomas charming Alex with tales of '80s protests, Dad laughing freer than I'd ever seen. Truth spilled. Thomas had a son, my age, from a marriage of convenience that ended amicably. Kept in touch with Elias over the years, he admitted, glancing at Dad. Letters. Support, when the church's cures got too dark. Dad nodded, shamefaced. He pulled me back from the edge more than once. The revelation hit me sideways. All those ex-gay conferences Dad had dragged me to as a teen, the shame sessions where men wept over demons, he'd known the lie, lived it, yet pushed it on me to spare himself the mirror. "You let them hurt me," I accused later, in the privacy of the cabin, Alex tactfully sketching in the corner. "To protect your image?" Dad's face crumpled. "I thought it would save you from my pain. But I was wrong, son. So damn wrong." The argument raged, words like bullets ricocheting off pine walls. Alex mediated, his calm anchor. "This isn't about blame anymore. It's about building forward." We did, haltingly. Thomas stayed a week, helping with youth workshops on identity, his presence a quiet revolution. But as he left, hugging me tight, he slipped a photo into my hand. Young Dad and him, arms around each other by this very lake, smiles unshadowed. "Your father's heart was always true," he said. "He just forgot where he left it." Fall deepened the wounds. Wedding season hit, and while Alex and I daydreamed of eloping to City Hall, simple vows, no pomp, the church board pressured Dad for a return to tradition. Anonymous notes appeared in pews, clean house, or close shop. Harlan led the charge, rallying the old guard at a rival evangelical hall, painting us as heretics poisoning the well. The breaking point came mid-October, during a harvest potluck. Alex and I arrived late, hands unheld but linked in spirit, to find the center vandalized, windows soaked with slurs, Sodom scrawled in red across the door. Inside, tables overturned, pies smeared like blood on the floor. The crowd hushed as we entered, eyes accusatory. "Who did this?" Dad demanded, voice thunder returning. Harlan stepped forward, chin jutted. "Folks are scared, Pastor. Your choices are dividing us." "My choices?" Dad's laugh was bitter. "Hiding who I am divided me for 40 years. And now you're threatening my family." The room polarized, shouts clashing like cymbals. I spotted Tommy in the back, smirking, and rage boiled over. "You threw that bottle. You're the poison here." He lunged, fists clenched, but Alex intercepted, shoving him back with a warning growl. "Touch him, and we're done playing nice." Security, 2 burly deacons, hauled Tommy out, but the damage lingered. That night, as cleanup crews mopped pie from linoleum, Dad pulled me aside. "Maybe it's time I stepped down. Let you lead without my baggage." "No." The word was steel. "We fight together. Or not at all." Alex nodded, wiping his hands on a rag. "Family sticks." Winter's grip tightened resolve. We hosted vigils, candlelit circles where stories poured. A trans teen from Toledo, parents disowning. A widow grappling widowhood and loneliness. Bonds formed, thicker than blood. Dad and Thomas exchanged calls, tentative bridges over old chasms. And Alex and I? We carved space. Lazy Sundays tangled in flannel sheets. No rush, just presence. His sketches now featured us, silhouettes against the lake, hands entwined, a future sketched in possibility. But Harlan's faction didn't relent. January brought lawsuits, frivolous claims of moral endangerment to the youth program, tying us in legal knots. Bills mounted again, hope fraying. One blizzard night, snow howling like banshees, Alex turned to me in the lamplight glow of the loft. "What if we run? Start fresh in the city. Leave the fight." The offer tempted, a siren's song. But as wind rattled panes, I thought of the kids' faces, mirrors of my younger self, desperate for light. "I can't. This is my calling." He sighed, pulling me close. Then it's ours. The trial loomed in February, a circus in the county courthouse. Harlan's lawyer droning on community standards, our side countering with affidavits of healing. Dad testified, voice unwavering. Faith isn't a cage. It's wings. Thomas flew in, his letter read aloud like scripture reclaimed. The judge, a stern woman with a rainbow pin on her lapel, dismissed the case in an hour, fines levied on the plaintiffs for frivolous filing. Cheers erupted in the hall outside, hugs exchanged amid flashbulbs from the local paper. But victory soured when Harlan cornered Dad in the lobby, face twisted. You sold your soul, Elias, and dragged your boy down with you. Dad met his gaze, unflinching. I found it, old friend. First time in years. As we drove home through slushy streets, Alex's hand on my thigh, a quiet settled. Not peace, exactly, but progress. The center thrived, pews filling with new faces. Spring whispered promises, and with it, a wedding date. May, by the lake, under open sky. Yet shadows lingered. One evening, sorting mail, I found a note in Dad's scrawl. Thomas and I, we're trying again. If you'll have us at the altar. Laughter bubbled, tears following. Forgiveness, it seemed, was a family trait. May arrived like a revelation, dogwoods blooming defiant against the last chill, turning Elmwood's lanes into corridors of pink and white. Our wedding planning became a communal rite. Youth group kids decorating mason jars with wildflowers, Emily orchestrating the playlist, Springsteen for the recessional, naturally. Alex and I stole moments amid the chaos. Fittings at the tailor in Cleveland, where his tuxedo hugged his frame like a second skin, my reflection beside him in the mirror feeling like destiny's nod. But beneath the joy, fault lines trembled. Dad's deepening bond with Thomas stirred undercurrents. Whispers from holdout Baptists that the old pastor's folly tainted our union. Harlan, undeterred by the courtroom loss, circulated petitions to revoke the center's nonprofit status, citing deviant leadership. Threats arrived in my inbox. Bible verses twisted into curses, anonymous calls hissing warnings of fire and fury. Alex brushed them off with dark humor. Adds character to the save the date, but I saw the toll in his shadowed eyes, the way he'd paced the loft at 3 a.m., sketching furious abstracts of fractured crosses. The real quake hit 2 weeks before the ceremony. I was in the center's office, buried in grant applications, when Dad burst in, face ashen as unleavened bread. Ben, we need to talk. Now. He locked the door, sinking into a chair that creaked under his weight. In his hand, a manila envelope, edges worn like worry beads. What's wrong? My voice pitched high, echoes of that long-ago letter confession. He slid it across the desk. Read it, then decide if you still want me walking you down that aisle. Inside, photocopies of old seminary records, witness statements from the 80s. Not just Dad and Thomas's affair, but a cover-up. After their breakup, Dad, in panic, had accused Thomas of seduction to the dean, triggering an expulsion that branded Thomas unemployable for years. He'd known, buried the guilt under sermons, but never made amends until now. Thomas had forgiven, but the documents revealed more. Dad's role in pushing reparative policies at the school, policies that funneled dozens into shame-filled therapies that left scars, suicides, shattered families. You helped build this machine that tried to crush me. The words clawed out, venomous. Betrayal tasted like bile, hot and acrid. All those vigils you dragged me to, the electric prayers, the fasting. You knew it was poison. Dad's eyes welled, hands trembling. I was drowning, son. Thought if I fought hard enough, God would erase it. But seeing you, loving Alex, it cracked me open. Too late. I hurled the envelope. Papers fluttered like dying moths. You preached purity while wielding the whip. How can I trust you? How can anyone? He rose, slow as an old man, and left without a word. The door's click echoed like finality. Alex found me hours later, curled on the office floor amid the debris. Talk to me, he urged, kneeling, his touch a tether. I spilled it all. The documents, the rage, the fear that our fragile peace was built on sand. What if he's right? What if loving you costs everything? He cupped my face, thumbs brushing tears. Then it's a cost worth paying. But don't let his ghosts haunt us. Confront them. I did, The next dawn at the lake. Dad was there, rod in hand, casting lines into mist-shrouded water, a ritual from his boyhood, he'd once said, for clarity. I approached, boots crunching gravel, the air sharp with dew. I'm sorry, he said before I spoke, real pausing mid-turn. For the boy I hurt, for the man I became, and for you, my son, who deserved a father, not a fraud. The apology hung, insufficient yet sincere. I sat beside him, the dock groaning under our weight. Why now? After all this time? Fear's a hell of a blindfold. He reeled an empty line, sighed. Thomas made me see. Secrets don't protect, they imprison. I want to be free. For you, for him, for whatever days God grants. We talked till sun crested, words weaving a rickety bridge. Not absolution, but acknowledgement. He vowed to the seminary board. Public amends, a fund for survivors of conversion harm. I nodded, the knot in my chest loosening a fraction. The wedding day dawned crystalline, sky of vast cerulean canvas. The lakeside clearing buzzed, folding chairs draped in burlap, wildflower arches framing the water's gleam. 50 guests, our patchwork family, milled with lemonade and laughter. Emily adjusted my boutonniere, a simple daisy, her eyes bright. You look happy, Ben. Truly. Thomas stood with Dad at the altar site, hands clasped, their quiet joy a counterpoint to old pains. Alex appeared down the aisle, path cleared by youth group torchbearers, kids who'd found voice in our circle, now lighting the way. His smile, crooked and sure, hit me like grace. Vows exchanged under the arch, rings simple gold bands etched with waves. I promise to see you, all of you, Alex said, voice steady, in every storm and calm. Mine trembled. To love without hiding, to build without breaking. Kisses sealed it, soft, profound, cheers erupting like fireworks. The reception spilled into dusk, barbecue ribs smoking, bluegrass fiddles twanging, dances under string lights where Dad and Thomas swayed tentative, reclaiming stolen steps. But elation cracked that night. Harlan crashed the after-party, staggering from a flask, face mottled with drink and spite. Mockery, he bellowed, waving a crumpled flyer. Our wedding announcement, defaced with slurs. This ain't a marriage, it's a sin fest. Guests froze, security tensed. Dad stepped forward, calm as Galilee. Harlan, brother, sit. Have coffee. Talk. Talk. You've poisoned everything. Spittle flew. He lunged at me, wild-eyed. Alex blocked, taking the shove meant for me, staggering back into the fire pit. Embers scattered, his sleeves singeing before hands pulled him free. Chaos reigned. Shouts, sirens wailing as cops hauled Harlan away, cuffs clicking like judgment. Alex waved off medics. Burn minor, but sting deep. I'm fine, he insisted, but in the ER tent, alone while they bandaged, his whisper gutted me. Is this our life? Endless fights. Doubt seeded, sprouting thorns. Harlan's arrest made headlines. Ex-deacon disrupts gay wedding, fueling a media storm. Reporters camped the center, microphones thrusting like spears. National outlets picked it up, CNN panels debating rural homophobia. Activists praising our resilience. Offers poured, book deals, speaking gigs, but so did hate. Death threats scrawled on our door, a brick through the window shattering stained glass depicting the Good Shepherd. Dad bore the brunt, his health fraying. Nights sleepless, sermons faltering. Thomas urged retreat. Come to Vermont. Heal. But Dad refused, stubborn as oak. This is our ground. We hold it. I wavered, the weight crushing. One midnight, Alex and I drove aimlessly, city lights blurring to stars. Maybe Harlan's right. I confessed, voice small. Maybe we're the division. He pulled over, engine ticking cool. No, we're the mend. Look at the kids, the lives we're saving. That's not poison, it's antidote. His words anchored, but the storm raged. June's heat wave amplified tempers. A bomb threat evacuated the center, FBI tracing it to a fringe group Harlan had rallied. In the fallout, Dad collapsed. Stress-induced heart episode, Doc said. Thomas and I sat vigil in Toledo General, beeps of monitors a dirge. He's stable, the nurse assured, but his eyes, when they fluttered open, held defeat. I pushed too hard, he rasped to me. For redemption I don't deserve. You do. I lied, gripping his hand. Truth was, resentment lingered, a low burn. Alex arrived at dawn, coffee in hand, his presence stealing us. "We're family," he said simply, and in that sterile room, amid antiseptic sting, it rang true. Recovery stretched Summer's tale. Dad mended slow, Thomas is constant, their love a quiet testament. Harlan pled guilty to assault, community service his penance. Ironic hours at the center, sweeping floors under watchful eyes. Change, incremental. Yet the climax brewed unseen. August unearthed the final secret. In Dad's hospital effects, a locked box yielded letters. Not just Thomas's, but mine. Unsent confessions from my teen years, pinned in his hand. "Elias, I see the boy struggling, the pull he fights. God, help me guide him right." Journals chronicled his torment, watching me echo his denial, vowing silence to spare me, only deepening the grave. I confronted him in rehab, box between us. "You knew, all along." He nodded, tears carving channels. "And I failed you every day." The dam broke, not in fury, but flood of shared grief. We wept, arms around each other, the lake's ghosts exorcised in saline. "Forgive me," he begged. "I do," I whispered. "We both need it." Autumn gilded the wounds. The center expanded, a Pride Center hybrid, counseling rooms buzzing. Alex's designs adorned walls, murals of diverse hands clasped, crosses blooming rainbows. Our first anniversary dawned crisp, celebrated with a lakeside picnic, Dad and Thomas grilling burgers, Emily toasting with cider. But peace isn't stasis, it's dance with shadows. Harlan's service ended with a grudging handshake. Maybe. I was wrong. Baby steps. As leaves fell, Alex and I walked the dock, rings glinting. "Think we'll make it?" he asked, half joking. "Every damn day," I replied, kissing him under harvest moon. Love, it turned out, wasn't absence of storm, but sailing through. November's chill ushered reflection, Elmwood's streets blanketed in frost-kissed leaves that crunched underfoot like whispered absolutions. The center pulsed with purpose now, Thanksgiving drives packing pantries for queer youth shelters, interfaith dialogues drawing rabbis and imams to our table. Dad, frielier but fiercer, co-led with me, his voice a gravelly hymn of hope. Thomas integrated seamlessly, his literature classes evolving into storytelling nights where congregants unpacked closets long sealed. Alex and I settled into domesticity's gentle rhythm. Mornings tangled in quilts, his coffee brewing as I prepped sermons, evenings sketching by the hearth, my head on his lap, while he doodled our future. A house with a porch swing, maybe kids via surrogacy, laughter echoing off lake waves. Intimacy bloomed tender, not torrid. Kisses like communion, touches mapping trust. No rush to the bedroom's fire. Ours was a slow burn, kindled by glances across crowded rooms, notes tucked in lunch bags. You make the ordinary sacred. Yet humanity's mess clung. December brought Backlash's Echo. A national evangelical network aired an expose on our heretical haven, featuring Harlan's tearful interview. They stole my church, my friends. Donations dipped, old wounds reopening. Protesters picketed Christmas Eve service, signs bobbing, repent or perish. Inside, candles flickered defiant, choir voices rising in, "O come all ye faithful, queer and straight, broken and whole." After, as snow swirled, a lone figure approached, Tommy Greer, bottle thrower turned reluctant redeemer. Sober 6 months, courtesy of court-mandated AA at the center. "Pastor Ben," he mumbled, boots shuffling. "I saw the light. Or whatever. Sorry for the shit." No apology mended glass, but his presence, raw, reaching, stirred grace. "Come to service next week," I said. "See for yourself." He did, sporadically, a quiet pillar in the back pew. New Year's Eve, we hosted a watch party. Not countdowns to revelry, but reflections. Lanterns released on the lake. Each flame a released regret. Alex and I stood at the water's edge, his arm around my waist. "1 year," he murmured. "Feels like a lifetime." "Best one," I replied, nuzzling his neck, the scent of pine and possibility. But 2026 dawned with Dad's decline. The heart scare lingered, a shadow lengthening. January scans revealed more congestive failure, the doc said, prescribing pills and pace. Thomas hovered, cooking heart-healthy stews. Dad grumbled but ate, their evenings filled with 80s vinyl spins, reclaiming stolen youth. I wrestled guilt's remnants. If I'd confronted sooner, pushed less. Alex dispelled it nightly, his logic unyielding. You gave him freedom. That's gift, not curse. February's Valentines found us snowed in, cabin fever turning playful, forts from blankets, mock sermons on the theology of bad movies. Laughter healed deeper than lectures. Spring's thaw mirrored mending. The center's annual retreat, cabins by the lake, workshops on resilience. Dad led a session on burying the dead, metaphors for grief, secrets interred. Thomas shared poetry, verses of longing redeemed. Attendees wept, shared, a young dad coming out to his teens, a widow finding queer community post-loss. Yet crisis crested in April, under dogwood blooms. Dad collapsed during a hike, simple trail, group outing, clutching chest, face graying. Ambulance wailed, Thomas riding shotgun, me trailing in the van with wide-eyed kids. ER lights harsh, docs swarming, bypass needed, stat. Vigil again, but this time, family forged. Alex coordinated calls, Emily baked pies for the waiting room. Harlan even appeared, cap in hand, praying for him. Absurd, redemptive. Surgery succeeded, but recovery brutal. ICU beeps, Dad frail as tissue. Awake, he gripped my hand. Don't mourn yet, son. Got amends left. Like what? I teased, voice thick. Walking grandkids someday. Officiating your vow renewals. A wink, weak but wicked. May marked our center's first anniversary. Gala under tents, lake views shimmering. Dad, cane in hand, toasted. To secrets shattered, loves reclaimed. Applause thundered. Alex and I danced the first waltz, his lead sure, my steps lighter than ever. Summer hummed harmony. Alex's freelance boomed. Designs for affirming brands, murals in Chicago's Boys Town. We bought the house. Gingerbread Victorian on Elmwood's fringe, porch swing creaking welcomes. Dad and Thomas moved nearby, a cottage with garden plots for tomatoes and truth-telling. Fall's Harvest Festival echoed our first meeting, bonfires, hayrides, youth skits on identity. Tommy volunteered, flipping burgers with newfound zeal. Harlan attended, nodding along to hymns. But the true crescendo came November, Dad's 60th. Surprise party at the center, balloons bobbing, cake towering. As guests sang, he pulled me aside, envelope in pocket, mirroring that fateful day. For you, he said. Inside, deed to the center, transferred in my name. Your legacy now. Build bold. Tears pricked. Ours. He hugged me fierce. Always. Winter wrapped us gentle. Christmas Eve, full house. Alex's Chicago kin, Emily's brood, Thomas's son visiting with his partner. Carols caroled, gifts exchanged. Mine to Alex, a custom sketchbook etched our story. His to me, tickets to Vermont, a honeymoon redux for Dad and Thomas. As midnight mass ended, snow falling fat flakes, we strolled the lake path, breaths clouding. Happy? Alex asked, mitten hand in mine. Profoundly. I stopped, turning him to face the water, stars pricking velvet sky. You changed everything. We did. Kiss in the hush, soft as sacrament. Life's tapestry phrase. Health falters. Foes resurface, doubts whisper. Dad's bypass holds, but checkups loom. Harlan's progress wobbles, one meeting missed. Protests ebb, but online trolls persist. Yet in fractures, light seeps. One dawn, as frost-etched windows, Alex stirred beside me. Dreamed of the lake, he mumbled. Us, forever. I smiled, tracing his jaw. Waking's better. And it is. In America's quilted heart, where faith wrestles fear and love wins quiet wars, we've woven redemption. Not flawless, but full. Human, holy. For in trying to be straight for my church father, I found my truest bend. Toward light, toward him, toward us. The family secret? It didn't change everything. It freed it.